Hey, welcome to day 26 of 31 Days of Essential Oils. We are coming in on the last week. I can't believe this. Anyway, I am Tammy, your mentor and guide, and appreciate you being here. For those of you who have been here with me along this journey, even if you're just stopping by today for your first time, welcome. Check out other videos. I'm also following up over on synergessence.com. There's a 31 Days of Essential Oils tab, as well as the Ultimate Guide. I go between the two, primarily because I just want to maintain a focus with the oils here with 31 days. But I am writing over there. I'm getting a lot more detailed. That's become technical writing, more or less, regarding constituents and their impact on the body and why it's so important that we begin to basically recognize that this life, this world, is a chemistry experiment. It's a chemistry lab for sure. And that's the point of the oils. While they do have symptom relief and we are aware of their wellness potential, the challenge that we're faced with is that they are chemicals. And while in these videos I am sharing my version of the oil, meaning how I've used them. This comes to you with 30 years of background of personal practice, modification, because I do specialize in the study of plant constituents as they relate to human health and drug development. And so that's the reason why I'm over there on the blog getting a little bit more specific. Not the best and most fun kind of read. At the same time, I feel it's valuable because, as I mentioned, this world is a chemistry lab. And because we are being faced with or surrounded with, if you will, so many different types of chemicals, a lot of them being replicated from nature because they recognize the way they act, their function, their process. And what I mean by that is, of course, we recognize certain properties as anti-inflammatory, right, antiseptic, but there's also other properties such as tissue permeability. And, so recognizing when they recognize that and they're replicating this because they realize that this is what can be done. So it helps facilitate the absorption, the assimilation. Bisphylol, I think I said that probably wrong. I tore it up, but at any rate, that is a chemical. That is a number of plants. It's big in German chamomile, and that one actually is known for its ability to increased skin permeability. And they are actually making that and literally making it in labs and then turning around and putting it in personal care products. But my concern when it's combined with other nanotechnology, and we have menthol that does increase lung tissue permeability, and we're increasing, skin permeability. When we are doing this and we're adding additional technology and there's so many chemicals, we are being flooded. And of course, the body is going to be stressed. It's a protection mechanism. That said, though, as human beings, we also have our mind and our emotions, which contributes to the stress levels. And so we almost become stuck, if you will, in this vicious cycle of stress. So what do? We learn where we can begin to modify how we're doing things, and that includes using less of your oils. I realize that oils I realize the wellness potential, but until we recognize that a lot of the oils contain chemicals that are being duplicated in other products that are known endocrine disruptors. I just wrote about that in the Ultimate Guide on Synergessence. So you can please check that out. It kind of paralleled the blog I wrote about lavender because, well, these chemicals they're recognized as endocrine disruptors. Okay, there may be stories out there that say that there's no such thing, that these oils are not, and I get that there's conflicting information, and I can only imagine how confusing it is. It's confusing for me, and at the same time, when I look at people who specialize in understanding and studying endocrine disruptors, because the hormonal system is what regulates every aspect of our being, our function, that relies on the hormonal system. And the hormonal system communicates directly with the immune system. This is what synergy is. It's like everything has to work together. And so, of course, there's people who are looking at this because the environment is riddled with chemicals. That's how nature communicates. But there's too much information out there. And so now the body's overwhelmed, just like with the internet. There's so much information on the internet that our minds can become overwhelmed with what's the right thing to do and what do we believe, right? So that's why I'm doing all of this. And I think that's probably the first time that I've said this, but it really comes about because I wrote that piece yesterday. And truthfully, it disturbs me that people are looking at and trying to identify essential oils as a bad thing. They're not. We have 45 million chemicals on the planet that are currently being consumed around the world, which include medications, foods, personal care, household products, and so forth. And then this does include this, where we're not making these. I mean, we're making essential oils, we're producing them from plants, but you know what I'm saying? Actually, lab made, not nature made. So there are a lot of chemicals, and this is where I'm coming out and saying, yes, oils do contain phenols. Yes, oils do contain terpenols. Um, these are two chemicals that have been identified as endocrine disruptors. Um, Realizing that maybe getting more mindful with our selection of oils, so that occasionally we'll use some of those because they do have value. You know, the phenols are antimicrobial, but we don't necessarily need to be flooding our system with them. Hence, less is more. And teaching our children how to use them. But I don't think that we need to look at essential oils, like I said, as a bad thing. They're not. It would be helpful if we could learn how to integrate them into our lives in a more purposeful way, more mindful way, so that we can actually help stabilize our system so that it's not in this chronic state of fight or flight. So on that note, I want to talk about laurel leaf today, sometimes known as bay laurel. Um, it's an oil that I really respect. It's one that you don't mix with a lot of medications because of the chemical constituents in it. Um, at the same time, it does actually have some eugenol in it. At the same time, though, it also is very, very effective in supporting nitric oxide synthase function, which is, again, if you're new here, that particular genetic complex is directly linked to cardiovascular health, respiratory health, digestive health, immune function, as well as mental health. So it's a significant one because that's where we are supposed to be producing nitric oxide along with other oxidative stress chemicals. Because why? Because when the body's in stress mode, it begins to produce on that particular genetic complex, it produces peroxynitrite and hydrogen peroxide, or two of them. Hydrogen peroxide is our first line of defense against things like cuts. It's also produced when we're exposed to certain heavy metals, and at that point, hydrogen peroxide is then used in the storage of those heavy metals into fat tissue and bone marrow. By the way, I just want to say that bone marrow is part of the endocrine system. And I'm only mentioning that because I had mentioned endocrine system earlier. And so fat tissue, adipose tissue is also known as adipose, as well as bone marrow, are two components of the endocrine system. So of course they're going to be studying which chemicals, because again, the endocrine system is significant in how we hold weight and fat, as well as our immune system, because this is where we produce our red and our white blood cells, right? And there's a lot of bone marrow issues going on these days. So recognizing that, and bay laurel can actually facilitate this. So it's interesting that I would bring it up during this video. These aren't scripted. So I would bring up this whole thing about the endocrine system because bay laurel, or laurel leaf in this case, is one that I like to use to support the endocrine system when there aren't meds being taken. It's very good for also for moving the lymph system. That's another reason why I like it, because when the body is significantly stressed, the lymph system does stagnate. It just, because we're more tense. Okay, people would think that, it's, keep in mind there's no pump in the lymph system, so it requires muscle movement. This is the reason why massage is very good for helping to move the lymph system. This is why exercise, physical activity, is very good, because it helps to move the lymph system, because again, it doesn't have its own pump. Laurel Leaf can actually facilitate movement. It helps to keep things moving along because it relieves that stress response that stagnates. Because when you think about it, when you're tense, you're not moving, everything becomes more rigid. And so the mechanism of action for laurel leaf happens to be supporting the lymph system. It's also very good against a lot of, I like to use it too when I talk about the lymph system, like if there's a cold and you get a lot of congestion here in the lymph nodes and you can feel the swelling going on, really helps those to release. So that's when I say that it helps to move the lymph system. That's what I mean. It helps with that. You can also put it on the back of the ankles too. Um, I'm trying to think of other it's good. You can actually use it for a mouthwash because peroxynitrite, as I mentioned earlier, which is a form of oxidative stress that's produced when the nitric oxide synthase is kind of altered as a result of the stress response. You can actually put a couple of drops of laurel leaf in the mouthwash because it helps to eliminate, because peroxynitrite, what I was getting at, is actually linked to periodontal disease, gum disease. So you can use it as a mouthwash too because of the antimicrobial effects that it actually has. Um, and it also it does really support the digestive system. It's just a really superb oil. Again, if there are no medications involved, and you can find out more about those medications on the blog. So please check out synergessence.com. The link is in the description box below. I am a bit behind on my blogs just because they are so technical. So just subscribe so that you get notification. You can subscribe if you read one blog. You can actually get down to the bottom and subscribe to be notified when I post another one. That way you don't have to be checking every single day. I like to write every single day, and I am writing every day. I just don't get something posted every day. So if you want to know more about the medications in laurel leaf, please visit that over there because that's where I can get a little bit more detailed for you. But like I said, if there are no medications being taken, it's quite good for supporting nitric oxide synthase, which helps with the cardiovascular. It actually does help with mental health, mood. It's not my go-to for a mood, but if mental health concerns are there, chances are there is some struggle with the nitric oxide synthase. I don't doubt it, given the level of endocrine disruption that there is. So, a little bit of laurel leaf here and there is always a good idea, especially if there's digestive issues involved. And by digestive issues, things like ulcerative colitis, even colitis, indigestion, heartburn, GERD, laurel leaf would be very helpful for those. Um, and because, and like I said, the lymph system, and because it does have an antimicrobial benefit to it, it does support the immune system, but it doesn't stimulate the immune system, which is something I think is very important. What we want to do really is help stabilize the body, and that this particular oil is very, very good for that. All right, you guys take care. Thank you so much for being here. Please share. Please send this out into the world. I think this is important information that it's beneficial, that the more people understand the chemistry involved with our health, and it's not that complicated, and that's really what I'm here to do, is really try to help make it as understandable as possible. All right, thanks you guys, you take care, and I will see you tomorrow.